Welcome. Welcome to Motherhood Life. I'm Julie, and this is Reading Through the Bible in a Year. We're reading from the Chronological Bible. Today we're going to be reading from Genesis 18 to Genesis 19:38. So grab your coffee, tea, Kool-Aid, energy drink, which is what I have today, in my mug of the hour, this Christmassy, with moose on it and a bear. I guess the moose is over here. Yeah, I like this one. My sister got me this one. So get that going and let's get started with the reading of the word this morning. It starts out with a narration entitled Appearance of Heavenly Visitors. Not long after Abraham has responded to God's instructions regarding circumcision, God appears to Abraham in the form of a human visitor. With this manifestation of God, there are two created angels, also in human form. It is not clear whether Abraham immediately recognizes his Lord as being more than simply a personage of superior authority. If not, the visitor's divine nature begins to unfold to Abraham when the visitor seems to know not only Sarah's name, but also the innermost thoughts of her heart. When God announces that Sarah will soon bear a son, Sarah, who has been listening from the tent, laughs with disbelief, though perhaps with hopeful anticipation as well. When God questions her laugh, Sarah impulsively denies any expression of doubt. But when God insists that she is not telling the truth, Sarah stands silent and fearful in recognition that this heavenly visitor has correctly perceived her disbelief. The incarnation of God on this occasion and his announcement of a clearly supernatural birth are both predictive of the promised spiritual heir to Abraham, and the freedom and the joy of fellowship between God and man is witnessed in Abraham's hospitality to his heavenly guests, who now appear to Abraham as he relaxes in his tent, probably after his own midday meal. So now we pick up with Genesis 18. The Lord appears to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat, so that you can be refreshed, and then go on your way, now that you have come to your servant." "Very well," they answered, "do as you say." So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. "Quick," he said, "get 3 seahs of fine flour, and knead it, and bake some bread." Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice, tender calf and gave it to a servant, who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared, and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. "Where is your wife Sarah?" they asked him. "There in the tent," he said. Then the Lord said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife will have a son." Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already old and well advanced in years, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, "After I am worn out and my master is old, will I now have this pleasure?" Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Will I really have a child now that I am old?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, "I did not laugh." But he said, "Yes, you did laugh." This next part is a little narration. Um, about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. If God is perturbed by Sarah's impulsive deception, it is nothing to compare with the righteous wrath he is soon to display against the wicked cities of Sodom and Gomorrah in the Jordan plain, presumably near what is today known as the Dead Sea. It is in Sodom that Abraham's nephew Lot lives with his wife and 2 daughters. So it is understandable that when God tells Abraham he is going to destroy Sodom, Abraham should plead that at least the righteous in Sodom be saved. But Abraham's humble yet bold intercession with God extends to even those outside Lot's family, should they be found righteous. God's response to Abraham's calculated bargaining reveals God's sublime righteousness and mercy. God's extraordinary judgment against Sodom is apparently prompted by an uncommon wickedness, made all the more repulsive because of the unnaturalness, violence, and presumptuousness with which its inhabitants' lives are filled. An example of their wickedness is found in the way in which the 2 angels are received as they arrive in Sodom after their visit with Abraham. When Lot shares with them the hospitality and protection of his home, the men of Sodom demand that Lot release them to the angels, whom they presume to be normal men, so that they might use the angels for sexual perversion. It is because of this incident that the practice of homosexuality has ever since been associated with the Sodomites, although this particular depravity is not the only one in which they engaged. Even Lot seems not to have escaped the influence of Sodom's wickedness, although Lot here extends hospitality to strangers and defends them courageously when they are threatened. His character is impugned when he offers to give his own daughters to the Sodomites, for their pleasure in exchange for the safety of his guests. And when the angels tell of the impending destruction, Lot is hesitant to leave Sodom, perhaps because of undue attachment to his material possessions. After being practically dragged out of the city by the angels, Lot, his wife, and their 2 daughters are told by God to run for their lives and not to look back. However, Lot's wife, who is apparently convinced but not converted, turns to view the destruction of the cities in the plain and is herself destroyed. Whereas Sodom and Gomorrah are consumed with rain of what may have been burning pitch or sulfur, Lot's wife turns into a pillar of salt. This account of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah contains a wealth of insight into man's sinful state, as well as God's judgment and mercy. It shows that God's judgment, although markedly righteous, is catastrophic, unexpected, and certainly complete. Catastrophic, unexpected, and certainly complete. Thus it calls sinful man to flee from his own unrighteousness without turning back to inevitable moral destruction, but persevering until he has reached the safety of God's promised rest. It is perhaps with these lessons in mind that as the 3 heavenly visitors now set out for Sodom, God anticipates the need to tell Adam what he is about to do. As one who is to become the father of God's chosen nation, Abraham needs to witness for himself the awesome judgment of God upon those who practice wickedness and pass on to future generations how terrible the consequences of sin really are. Okay, so we pick up now with Genesis 18:16. When the men got up to leave, they looked down toward Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him. For I have chosen him, so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him." Then the Lord said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so grievous, that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know." The men turned away and went towards Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right?" Talk about a prayer and boldly talking to the Lord and interceding for others. The Lord said, "If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake." Then Abraham spoke up again, "Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city because of 5 people? If I find 45 there," he said, "I will not destroy it." Once again he spoke to him, "What if only 40 are found there?" He said, "For the sake of 40, I will not do it." Then he said, "May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there?" He answered, "I will not do it if I find 30 there." Abraham said, "Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there?" He said, "For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it." Then he said, "May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there?" He answered, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it." When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home. The 2 angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. When he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. "My lords," he said, "please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night, and then go on your way early in the morning." "No," they answered, "we will spend the night in the square." But he insisted so strongly that they did go with him, and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, so that we can have sex with them." Lot went outside to meet them and shut the door behind him and said, "No, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof." "Get out of our way," they replied, and they said, "This fellow man here has an alien, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them." They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. But the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness, so that they could not find the door. The 2 men said to Lot, "Do you have anyone else here, son-in-law, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry of the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it." So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, "Hurry and get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city." But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. With the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Hurry, take your wife and your daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished." When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and of his 2 daughters, and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, "Flee for your lives, don't look back, and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away." But Lot said to them, "No, my lords, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life. But I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me and I'll die. Look, here is a town near enough to run to, and it is small. Let me flee to it. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared. He said to them. He said to him, Very well, I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly because I cannot do anything until you reach it. That is why the town was called Zor. By the time Lot reached Zor, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, including all those living in the cities, and also the vegetation of the land. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham, and he brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. The next part here is a little narration entitled The Scheme of Lot's Daughters. As Abraham looks out from the heights of Hebron over the now desolate Jordan plain, undoubtedly with awe and with obvious concern for Lot, he apparently has no way of knowing whether Lot was sufficiently righteous to be saved. There's no record that Abraham ever again sees Lot or even learns of his escape. Perhaps it is best that Abraham never knows of Lot's end in life, which is characterized by haunting fear, reclusion, and apparent dissoluteness. That God had ever saved Lot in the first place may have been a moment to his everlasting mercy, or perhaps a testimony to the high regard in which God held Abraham. What follows is the last historical record of Lot. Strangely, it involves a somewhat bizarre scheme on the part of Lot's two daughters to bear children by their father. The motive for their scheme appears to be legitimate enough, but under normal circumstances, their acts of incest would be unquestionably immoral. And although the record indicates that Lot was unaware of his involvement in the plan, it is all made possible by his apparent willingness to let his daughters get him drunk. Of continuing historical significance are the two sons born as a result of this incestuous relationship and the people who descend from them. Moab will become father of the Moabites, who will first settle northeast of the Dead Sea between Jabbok and the Arnon rivers, but will later be driven out by the Amorites to an area south of the Arnon. Ben-Ami, Ammon, in parentheses it says Ammon, will become father of the Ammonites, who will be migratory and marauding Molech worshippers in the land between the Jabbok and the Arnon. Both nations will come into conflict repeatedly with Abraham's descendants, all as a result of the events which now unfold. Lot, now we pick up again with Genesis 19. Lot and his two daughters left Zor and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zor. He and his two daughters lived in a cave. One day the older daughter said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is no man around here to lie with us, as is the custom all over the earth. Let's get our father to drink wine, then lie with him, and preserve our family line through our father. That night they got their father to drink wine, and the older daughter went in and lay with him. He was not aware of it when she lay down, or when she got up. The next day the older daughter said to the younger, Last night I lay with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight, and you go in and lie with him, so that we can preserve our family line through our father. So they got their father to drink wine that night also, and the younger daughter went and lay with him. Again, he was not aware of it when she lay down, or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son, and she named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites of today. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites of today. And that finishes up our reading of the Word of God for today. Thank you for joining me here on Mahood Life. I'm Julie, and have a blessed day today.